You've got your research topic and it's a qualitative question. So you have decided that you're going to do a qualitative research. But how do you collect the data? Do you interview people or do you put them together and talk to them, or you just sit in a corner somewhere quietly and observe? In this video, I'm going to break down the most common data collection methods in qualitative research with practical examples, of course, so that you know exactly which one to use and when. My name is Lerato Kanomsa of All Things Academia, where we explore and explain all things in the academic world. This is the second video of our methodology series. In the first video, we have looked at what qualitative research is really and why does it matter. So if you have missed that video and you're still a little bit confused about that, I will pin it up here somewhere and link it in a description down below where you can access it with ease. In this video, we are zooming in the tools, the actual methods you can use to collect your data. And we're going to focus on the common four when it comes to qualitative research. And those are interviews, focus groups, observations, and document analysis. By the end of this video, you're going to know the differences between these four and how to choose the right one for your research. Let's start with the king of qualitative methods, the interviews. An interview is simply a guided conversation between you and the participant, but there are different types of interview that you can actually conduct when you're doing your research. There are structured interviews where you ask the same set of questions in the same order every time with everyone you sit down to talk to. This is a very restrictive way of having a conversation with the participant because it does not allow for flexibility. You need to stick to the script and the questions that you are asking. This is when you actually have a large sampling, when you don't have the whole time in the whole world to do these interviews. They run about 15 to 20 minutes where someone just walks in, they sit down and you start asking them a series of questions, and the next person the same thing. This kind of interviews have an advantage because they allow you to run multiple of interviews in the same day. You can have like 10 interviews that takes around 15 minutes each in the same day. So it is good on that regard, but it's very restrictive in terms of the conversation. We also have semi-structured interviews where you have guided questions, but you allow the conversation to flow naturally. So this is a bit more flexible than the structured interviews. You do have questions. You don't go in blindsided to speak to someone. You've got sort of an idea of the questions you want to ask them and things that you are interested in finding out. But then you sit down and then you're not restricted to those questions. You can ask them in any order, bringing each question in seamlessly into the conversations that you are having with the participant. I personally like this kind of interviews because they get you relaxed and get the participant relaxed as well, and you actually have a meaningful conversation. Plus, you are able to bring in follow-up questions should something need to be followed up. Maybe you have a guiding question that asks a specific thing, and then you can have a follow-up question if that is not clear, unlike the structured interviews where you just stick to the script. We also have unstructured interviews, which are like open-ended conversation with minimal structure. These are also very flexible, but they risk you finding different information. Since you do not have guided questions, you might end up asking a new thing every time you have this conversation and have a bit of more work when it comes to data analysis when you're supposed to synthesize that information that you've collected. Here you've got the risk of the data that you have collected being inconsistent and struggle to find links within that data. Most postgrad students use the semi-structured interviews. I can attest because I am one of those postgrad students who use the semi-structured interviews. The reason behind this is simply finding balance between consistency and flexibility. They are not as inconsistent as the unstructured interviews, but they are also not as restrictive as the structured interviews. So semi-structured interviews are actually the in-between, the balance between the two. And that's the sweet spot. So a quick example using our online academic coaching topic. I might ask something like, what motivated you to sign up for online coaching? Then follow up with, can you share a time when coaching really helped you in your academic work? The second question opens up for a rich storytelling. This is the kind of questions where you get the nuances of the data from. Next up, focus groups. This is where you bring several participants together to discuss the same topic. The benefit in this is because people can build up on each other's ideas. Someone may share an experience and someone may respond with, yes, that happened to me too. Or even disagree with what was shared, which gives more insight into different perspectives. The thing is, focus groups are not always easy. You really need to know how to facilitate the group and manage the dynamics within that group, because some people might dominate while others remain quiet the whole time. So it becomes your job as the facilitator of the group to lead the discussion and make sure that everyone has a fair chance to share, and also put in some ground rules, because some people might close off, not wanting to share their stories with others, scared that they're going to be discussed later on, because this does not provide the privacy that the interviews provide. So strict ground rules need to be laid beforehand for mutual respect, no judgment environment, basically providing a safe space where everyone is able to share. And most of the time, these focus groups are built on trust, which is not an easy thing to earn. If I wanted to find out how honors students experience academic stress, I might run a focus group where they discuss challenges and coping strategies together. The focus group, apart from the risks that we have already discussed, it can also create a space that is comfortable for everyone, since it provides a space for them to understand that they are not alone in this matter. Another classic method is observation. Here you watch and record behaviors in a natural setting. There are two types of observations: participant observation, where you are actively involved in the group, and non-participant observation, where you observe without joining in. The strength of observation is that you get to see what people do as opposed to what they say they do, because sometimes actions can reveal things that words tend to hide. Participants may share something with you that they think is significant for what you are asking, but actually it is in the everyday practices that phenomena gains more depth. Observations can be tricky though, because you need to know which kind of observation you can do in what setting. For example, there are settings where you cannot be a non-participating observer, because it will be awkward of you to just walk in a space with a group of people doing something and you're not joining in. You're just awkwardly sitting there at the corner and watching them. People get suspicious and uncomfortable in those spaces. But there are spaces where you can get away with just observing. I remember I did a quick observation assignment for a short project where I just went and sat by the taxi rank. It was a busy spot, so I just sat down there with those who were sitting down. I was watching people's behaviors. I could get up and walk around with those walking up and down. And at one point I boarded a taxi just to sit in the taxi and listen into conversations and see how people behave in the taxi ride, but I was not necessarily part of those conversations or part of whatever that was happening. I was observing. There are places though, like churches, where you cannot just walk in and sit quietly and observe. Most of the times in worship, you need to get involved. When people stand up to sing, you stand and sing and dance with them. You can't just awkwardly sit and watch people worshiping. So you need to determine what part of observation you can do in that setting. And observations, like all other methods, come with heavy ethical considerations. You need to consider the access, if you whether you're going to gain access to that setting. You need to consider the power dynamics, your positionality. So there's a lot to work around when using this method. But don't sweat. In the next 4 videos, your academic bestie will be taking each method and going into depth so that you know exactly how to execute that method. So be sure to subscribe to this channel if you have not already, and hit the bell icon next to the subscribe button so that you get notified every time I upload those 4 videos that covers in depth each of these collection methods. Qualitative research also uses documents, things like diaries, letters, sermons, meetings, and even social media posts. These can be powerful data sources because they capture voices and practices outside your interviews and focus groups. For example, with our online academic coaching topic, I might analyze comments on YouTube posts and Instagram posts where students talk about their struggles, because these digital traces are part of their stories. Now we've discussed 4 methods. How do you choose the right one for your study? Before we get into all of that, I just want to take this time and thank everyone who has subscribed to this channel, Academic Besties. Y'all are awesome. And I'm sending a special shout out to the Smart Scholars and Advanced Academic who are members of this channel. Thank you very much for your support, guys, and I appreciate and love you so much. I'll be sending you a copy of what kind of questions require which one of the 4 types of methods that we have mentioned in this video. And for the advanced academic, of course, yours will come with some guiding questions and how to actually start thinking about formulating your interview questions, your focus group questions, and what guiding points and things to look out for when you are doing observations. So look out for that in the membership portal. where I will post it for you guys. Now, if you want all these resources and you're wondering how to join the membership portal, it is quite easy. You just click the join button next to your subscribe button. If that does not appear, there's a plus icon on your subscribe button. Just click that and it will take you to a page where you can join the very cheap membership of this channel. The first year is literally cheaper than a bottle of soda. So just click that join button and we'll be happy to welcome you into the family. This is how you choose which method you should use for your study. First thing is you need to go back to your research question. Look at your research question. What are you exactly asking? What kind of data do you need to answer that question? If you are asking a question that needs personal stories, then interviews are your best option. If the question is answered by data that needs like different perspective on that particular topic, then you should do focus groups. If you want to talk about real life practices, the everyday practices of people, then you need to go with observations. If the question that you are asking lies within what has been asked before, or that data can be produced from data that already exists, then you can do a document analysis. Basically, your research question determines what method you're going to use. It's either you adjust your research question to suit a specific method if it does not align with what you currently have in mind, or you change the method itself to go with the question. Either ways, you need to align one or the other. Right? So if you're asking a question that has to do with practices and you're not interested in observation, then you might want to adjust that question to ask something that will allow you to do an interview or focus group. Secondly, you need to think about access. This is a big one. There is no point of choosing a method that you do not have access to or the skill to execute it. And here I'm going to throw in time as well. The timing also matters in whether you can do or execute that particular method. Besides the time issue, there's the access issue. You cannot do a method where you cannot have access to either participants or the space that you need to observe in. If you're going to observe, you need permissions and a lot of ethical consideration to be in that space. So the method that you choose will depend on also, will you have access to those people that you need to talk to? Because if you don't, then you want, again, to adjust your questions so that you can use a method that you can execute. Thirdly, and most importantly, remember ethics consideration all the way. The kind of participants you're talking to, your study is at high risk if you're talking to minors or people with mental health issues, people who have went through certain traumas, and you, by talking to them, you can re-traumatize them. So you need to consider all those things. How are you going to mitigate all those risks? Okay, so you need to have serious ethical considerations. But like I said, later on, we'll do a video on ethical considerations and we'll discuss how you work around these issues. So academic besties, this is how you can choose one of the 4 common qualitative research data collection methods. Also, you do not have to have the pressure to go with a specific one. You can have a hybrid. Okay, so you can do focus groups and interviews. So maybe you do focus groups, and from the 12 people that you have set in a focus group with, you choose 5 or 6 to interview on the side. Or you can do like how I planned in my case, to have these interviews, and from the interviews you choose a specific number that you're going to observe. So it depends on the kind of question you're asking and in what setting you are asking that question. But you actually have some flexibility when you're going to collect this data, and you can decide what kind of information that you want. The key thing here is to justify. And if you follow this channel, then you know that I always say assumption is the enemy, and justification when you're writing out your methodology is your redemption. It is your savior. Trust me. And as I tell you this, please click the thumbs up button because you like this video and you have enjoyed it. And I know this. Why? Because you are still here. So smash that like button and show me some love. And also don't be shy to hit the super thanks button down below and donate something, an amount of your choice to this channel. So when you are using a hybrid, you need to state clearly why you need to use these 2 methods. So for example, if you say you're going to do interviews and you're also going to observe, then you need to state what information are you hoping to find in the observations that you're not going to find in the interviews. Same as if you're doing focus groups and then interviews, or interviews and then focus group, you need to say clearly what information you are gathering from the focus group that will deepen your research that you will not necessarily get by doing interviews alone. So basically here the trick is in telling the examiner or telling your supervisor what kind of information you are looking for from each data set. And that's all you need to do. Whether you find that information or not, we do not know. That's the whole point of doing this research in the first place. So here you have it, academic besties, a quick overview of data collection methods in a qualitative research approach. If you want an in-depth into interviews, then click the video that is appearing on your screen right now, because that is the video that is going to discuss semi-structured interviews, structured interviews, unstructured interviews in depth, and how to conduct each. So what are you waiting for? Click on the video as I project to you love and grace in a way of 2 Corinthians 13 verse 14.